Alright, man. Hopefully the microphone works this time. Been having some problems with it lately where halfway through the audio will start to dim, so fingers crossed doesn't happen this time. I'm going to keep an eye out for the audio levels here just in case I don't talk your ear off, so to speak, and then find out that only some of it had ever been recorded. Alright, man. It's episode 27 of the Cozy Corner of Cinema, and we are feeling cozy right now, man, because it's getting chilly out. Geez, I can already see my cat's getting his winter fur, and it's not even the winter yet. I love the autumn, though. Love the fall. Geez Louise, man, I'm looking at a tree right now. It's orange, green. It's like something out of a painting, man. You can't, oh my gosh, this is beautiful, man. Truly beautiful. And you know what else is beautiful? Is some great films that I watched this week. One in particular, which I'm going to talk a lot about, but I use the experience, I use the experience. I used the opportunity to go to the IMAX last weekend. Now, the primary IMAX that was a building on its own was one that I had frequented before the COVID pandemic, and because of that, it was shut down for a couple of years. And even when I saw Christopher Nolan's Tenet in IMAX, it was part of a Cinemark, so it was IMAX asterisk essentially. It's like if you've been to a Cinemark, they have the XD theater, and it was kind of similar to that. It didn't feel like the full experience, but it was the best I could do under those circumstances. But an acquaintance of mine had informed me that the IMAX that I used to frequent has been open since this past May, and I had no idea about it, so I was eager to go back and watch anything really, even if it had been a film that I had seen. So I had mentioned last week the re-release of James Cameron's Avatar that was coming out, and it's actually funny looking at the box office how internationally it made more than Olivia Wilde's new film, but domestically her film Don't Worry Darling has made more. I think Avatar opened at number 3 this weekend, but I'm definitely not gonna talk about Avatar because it's a very talked about film. People generally don't seem to be too crazy about it, especially given all this time since. And it's watching it now. I think some of the visuals are still fantastic. I loved all of the overhead shots where you have the characters kind of running on these long logs, and you can see the depth of how far down the fall is. Some of the neon lights at night were really fantastic. Some cool tech here and there. As for the film itself, I mean, it's I don't think it's a lot of the same problems that I had when it came out. Now, I don't want to just trash the film because you watch it and you see that a lot of hard work went into it, man. I mean, for 2009, it was pretty fantastic looking at a lot of the visuals, and here it still is. It looks great for the most part. There were some character movements that looked a bit questionable. But there is some dialogue in this movie that would make the Pope weep, man. I mean, I won't get into it, but because everybody else has. This film has been out for 13 years, and people have picked apart this film and stuff. And it's certainly not a classic. I'll leave it at that. And you look at the Best Picture nominees that year, and when it's alongside films like The Hurt Locker and Inglourious Bastards, it kind of and A Serious Man, I believe, was nominated that year. It kind of I would say it feels like the odd man out, but The Blind Side is also there, which is a film that I'm not a fan of. So, but either way, I think this is a good opportunity that if you are a fan of the film or you didn't get a chance to see it, because theatrically, then you should make an effort to go see it. Because watching it in IMAX 3D, I don't know if they redid the sound or whatnot, but the surround sound was amazing in this IMAX. When there were gunshots, I felt like there was somebody off in the distance doing it. Some of the dialogue would what felt like you could really hear the distance on it. And I might be misremembering some things. I feel like some shots in this film were either cut out or not. Like there were two moments in particular that that I remembered differently. The first being, there was a joke that a lot of people were saying that in the film, the characters, which I don't think I really need to explain, I think pretty much everyone has seen, or most people have seen, but they have these long ponytails that connects them to like the creatures there to like ride them, I guess. And there's a love scene, well, a brief love scene in the film where the two main characters, they connect their braids, and I don't know if I just missed it or I blinked or what, but I didn't remember seeing it. I remember that shot, but I don't remember seeing it this time. I don't know if I was spacing out or looked away or something like that. I really don't know. And at the end of the film, there's a one last interaction with Giovanni Ribisi's character, who is my favorite character in the film because he's so sloppily written and he's so comically evil. I loved him. He was my favorite character by far. He was so ridiculous that you can't take it seriously. But I love him as an actor so much that I just loved it, you know. But there was a one last interaction where he says something like "This isn't over" or something like that, and I didn't remember that when I first saw it. Now then again, I'm thinking back to 13 years ago, so those I may have that shot or that line could have been in the film originally. I have not seen it since. I don't think this is a film that is quite the cultural landmark that it was trying to be. But I look at it this way: I look at a filmmaker like James Cameron, and I compare him to Christopher Nolan. Now, I think Christopher Nolan is a much better filmmaker in terms of is still making, in my opinion, amazing films. I think I mean, besides The Dark Knight Rises, I think I like all of Christopher Nolan's films, and to the point where I would say that Interstellar, Dunkirk, and Tenet, I think, are three of my favorites by him. But what I like about James Cameron and Christopher Nolan, they're both very much advocates, like I am, for the theatrical experience. So James Cameron was saying online, you can watch Avatar at home, but you're not getting the same experience. And watching it in IMAX 3D, you know, and I kind of have to agree in a way because I just watch it and the scale of it. It doesn't use the complete IMAX screen of an acquaintance of mine who's more knowledgeable about the IMAX aspect ratios and all that. It uses most of the screen, and you really feel at times the depth of how far up you are. Like whenever they're looking down or they're on the side of the mountains and they're looking, and you know, it feels like wow, this is incredible. I just can't even imagine watching this on like a computer or like, you know. So same thing with Christopher Nolan's Tenet. I know that came out in during the pandemic and all that, but I said before, I remember seeing people kind of being like, oh, why, I'm not going to see this in theaters. What, Christopher Nolan's this and that, and I'm like, man, to see Tenet theatrically, which I saw it twice in theaters. I'm a big fan of that film, but yeah, there are just some sequences in that. I just can't even imagine watching at home. Now let me say it this way: watching at home is still phenomenal. I watched that for Christmas that year. I was gifted the 4K, and I made a big night of it. You know, I had my surround sound up. I was like totally involved with the screen. I had a cold beverage in my hand. Let me tell you, man, when it comes to home experiences, that was one of the best I ever had. It made me love the film even more. But seeing it theatrically, like Interstellar, I think is a different experience overall. But still, a great film. And I should also say, you have like Denis Villeneuve or Villeneuve, however you say it, who was really pushing for Dune to be put theatrically and was very annoyed or was very upset that Warner Brothers were just putting it on HBO Max the same day. And I was like, yeah, I agree with him. Dune is a theatrical film. You got to see it theatrically. And same with Tom Cruise. He was like, I'm not putting Top Gun Maverick on streaming. This is a theatrical film. And look at Top Gun Maverick now. It's one of the highest grossing films ever. And trust me, man, if you see that in a cinema, whew, that is a hell of a ride, man. Hell, if it was back at the IMAX, I think I'd go and see it again. And I didn't even love the film. I thought it was a lot of fun, but I wasn't like in love with it. But still, I'm just like, man, Tom Cruise and James Cameron, Chris Nolan, Denis Villeneuve, these people are really pushing the theatrical experience, and I think that's so important now where it's so easy just to watch these films at home, and even though you may still enjoy them, it's a different experience overall, and we all have bad times at the cinema, but the good times are the ones that really stick out. And let me get a sip of coffee, and we're going to go right into the main film I want to talk about today. One more sip, just finish it off. So, a filmmaker who I've mentioned before on the show as one of my favorite filmmakers working, Andrew Dominik, has directed, well, I guess this is his fifth, but technically fourth narrative feature film. His first one being Chopper from 2000 with Eric Bana. Fantastic film, one of my favorites. Hilarious and dark, but it's just one of the best films. Then he followed it up in 2007, so you have a 7-year gap there, with the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, which I actually talked about on the show before quite a bit. And since then, my opinion on the film has gone up. I went from thinking it was great to practically loving the film, and it kind of reminds me of how much I love Casey Affleck as an actor because he's just so fantastic in that film. And then he followed that up in 2012 with another Brad Pitt film, Killing Them Softly, and I want to bring that up later in terms of some reactions. But Killing Them Softly, fantastic gangster film, one of James Gandolfini's last films, unfortunately, but man, it's funny, it's dark, the violence is so brutal. Ray Liotta, R.I.P. as well. Oh man, he gets a scene. There's a scene in the film where he gets beat up, and you feel it. You just feel the punches. So you have another gap there from 2013. Now 9 years later. Now I know he did the documentary in I think 2015, which is the name I'm blanking on. I think it's a Nick Cave documentary. I don't remember what the name of it was. I apologize. I didn't see it. But he has this new film out. 9 years later, Blonde with Ana de Armas. You got a great cast here. Bobby Cannavale, Adrian Brody's in there. Some of the other actors I didn't recognize. But this is a film that's based off the Joan Carol Oates, I believe is her name, novel called Blonde as well, which takes the life of Marilyn Monroe, and it's not a biopic. It's essentially about kind of the darkness of Hollywood, the people surrounding her, taking advantage of her, and kind of this person who is known as being an icon of pop culture, but the beneath the curtain or beneath the sheet, whatever, however you want to say it, not beneath the curtain, doesn't make sense. This just ugliness around her. This we look at that whole era of Hollywood with rose tinted glasses, and we just see all of this the depravity and total just dementedness of it. And so this is based off that novel. It's not a true story, which I think is an important thing to remember, is that while there are true things in the film should not be watched as the life of Marilyn Monroe, because it's really not that, because there is even a big time jump. You have the opening sequences in the film of her a young child, and then it pretty much jumps to her being a model for these pinup kind of magazines, and then from there jumps right to her acting, and then her stardom right there. So this has been a much talked about film. It's 3 hours, and one thing is that it's NC-17, and I'm just thinking, man, there is no reason this should be NC-17. There's nothing explicit in the film. I think the NC-17 rating is such bogus, man, because even when you have a film like Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor, which was NC-17 as well, and I think that was primarily because there was an erect penis and a vagina, like a graphic shot of a vagina at one point. And I'm just thinking, man, we're all adults here. These are films for adults. Like, what is with the NC-17 should be used extremely sparing. I remember when the house that Jack built got an NC-17, and I'm just like, get out of here, man. This is ridiculous, you know? This film should not be NC-17. While there is a lot of sex in it, it's not explicit at all. Well, I think if your definition of explicit is, it's going to be different. Don't watch this film thinking you're going to be watching like penetration shots or something like that. It's nothing like that. But Blonde, man, I was obviously looking forward to the film because I love Andrew Dominik, and hearing about this film, it was really intrigued me because I love that whole era. I love, I know it's not the best comparison, but something like Hollywood Babylon by Kenneth Anger, which is, I mean, it's been talked about to death and it's been refuted to death. I mean, there's nuggets of some truths here and there, but the book is, definitely don't take that seriously. But that kind of idea of just, we're, Hollywood and celebrities now, everybody's on social media, they got to tell you what they're doing every second of every day. There's no mystique anymore. But there is also still that underbelly of just like, of sickness in Hollywood. A film like Starry Eyes, for example, is a really good, I mean, that's a horror film, but that's that sort of thing of just like, Hollywood is like just a giant cult. That's all it is, man. And this film, I loved it. It truly blew me away, man. I think Andrew Dominik has proven yet again that he is one of the best and most talented filmmakers working that we have now. And especially in the lead role, Ana de Armas, man. My gosh, man. I already thought she was a very good actress, whatever. Whenever I say actress, I think about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's actress is redundant, or whatever she says. Ana de Armas, man, what a phenomenal, and the thing is that it's a lot of times when actors are playing historical figures, I don't want to say that it's easy for them to lean into it where they can go, oh, they look so much like him, this and that. It's a lot of just little mannerisms that she has, a lot of times where the way she says certain words, it's one of these things where it's, even though she doesn't sound exactly like Marilyn Monroe, or because I think, Marilyn Monroe sounded a very certain way, you're still able to buy it because she has a lot of these just movements and mannerisms. I'm no expert on her or anything like that. I'm just a fan, and I like her films and all that, but Ana de Armas steals the show in this, of course. I just think of, like, man, I've seen, like, in the past, like, 2 weeks, between her performance in this and Mia Goth in Pearl, man, I think these are, it's only September, but these are, I mean, I don't care, I don't give a damn about the Oscars, whatever, it's all junk, but, like, these two people should, it's a no-brainer, they should be nominated for Academy Awards for this. Now, Mia Goth won't get an Academy Award because Hollywood looks down on genre films, and I'll say, I mean, I thought Pearl was okay. I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but Mia Goth, man, holy moly, she was amazing in that film. But Ana de Armas here is great. Adrian Brody shows up, and I gotta tell you, man, I'm really happy to see Adrian Brody in more films. I saw him in a film 2 weeks ago, See How They Run, which has been getting a little bit of talk, not so much, and it was so great to see him in that. Which, by the way, if you get a chance, really check out that film, man. That was such a fun mystery, good comedy that I mean, it's great cast. Sam Rockwell, come on, man, he's one of my favorite actors working. Saoirse Ronan, just total crush. I mean, it's just such a fun movie, man, that no one's really talking about. But it was great to see him in it as well. Bobby Cannavale is very good in the film as well. He's another of my favorite actors. He's an actor who I always think of, like, as in a certain way, he's a very comedic kind of actor. I see even in stuff like The Irishman, where he's being a bit more serious. He's still got a real good charm. Like, I loved him in Blue Jasmine from Woody Allen. He's just a great actor. And I don't know some of the other actors in this, but the actress ever who plays Norma Jean, Marilyn's mom, is great as well. The direction of the film, it's amazing. The way that and the editing as well, I should say, the way that they play with aspect ratios and color timings, not just black and white to color, but the way that certain scenes are lit. Where I loved, you can see in the trailer where a camera's going off and it's in complete darkness. It lights up all the surroundings, and certain shots from just that. God, it's kind of hard what I'm trying to say, but the way that some of the lighting is in the film, how you have like a restaurant scene which is very brightly lit, but then a street scene that would normally have all these lights from the street and all that just lit by solely just the flash of the bulb from a camera. It's beautiful, man. The opening stuff alone, I mean, it had my jaw dropped in terms of how well crafted the opening of this film is. The opening sequences of Norma Jean as a child and her mother, and right off the bat, the narrative of the film, it plays as it plays like a dream, like a nightmare, where a lot of it kind of. It's hard to explain. If you've seen a film like Love and Mercy, which is about Brian Wilson, there are sequences in that film where you have Paul Dano, who plays a young Brian Wilson in that, and he plays he's in the studio recording the Beach Boys album Pet Sounds, and there's a one of the most unsettling and just fantastic sequences in the film is when he puts on headphones and he just hears he's screaming, and he takes it off and he's like surprised, he's shocked, and then he puts it back on and he just like embraces like the screaming, and it feels like a nightmare. And that's what this film feels like. The way that the camera tracks her at times, the way that certain other characters are referenced in like her father and stuff. This is like, I know I'm kind of jumping around because I'm such a big fan of this film, and I'm like so happy that Andrew Dominik has made another great film. But man, that opening, I just I don't know who the actor who played the mom is, but she was so good. She has an interaction with a police officer, and just some of the dialogue that she has is so creepy, but even the officer is just like, he doesn't know what to do. He's like, you got to go back, there's a fire and stuff, and it feels disturbing, and as the film goes on, I mean, this is where we start to get other characters in this, and when it comes to historical characters in this film, it really is important to say this is not a true story. This is just a lot of observations, a lot of what ifs, because I won't get into it. I'll briefly touch on some of the reactions that I think are kind of ridiculous in terms of this film. But you have, like, I guess just for an example, she, was friendly with the sons of Edward G. Robinson and Charlie Chaplin. In the film, I don't know if it's even a spoiler or not. If you think it's going to be a spoiler, then just skip ahead and, skip ahead a couple minutes. I'm not going to talk about it for long. But in the film, they're portrayed as having a three-way relationship. And I read some stuff about what was accurate, what was not. And that seems to be just kind of speculation, but unlikely that she had that. But a lot of it is kind of like behind closed door stuff. So it's sort of like, maybe I don't know. I read a couple things where I wish I had pulled up the article that quoted it's unlikely, that would have happened, and especially there's always been talk of like her and like JFK and stuff, which is a very brief part of the film in terms of, again, a lot of behind closed door stuff. It's like, remember that movie that came out a couple years ago, Elvis and Nixon, with Kevin Spacey and Michael Shannon? I mean, no, there's a famous photograph of Elvis meeting with Nixon, which I think everybody knows about, but that film is almost entirely fictitious. All that's really true is that Nixon and Elvis met behind closed doors, and that the rest, which is fine, because I think a film like that, and another film that came to mind was the 2015 Steve Jobs films, where you're taking these real life people and you're making alternate stories around them, where there are truths in a fictitious story, and that's what Blonde is. Because in the film Steve Jobs, almost all of it is fictitious. I mean, it's just taking certain big events in his life and taking real life aspects, like he was neglectful to his wife and his daughter and stuff, and the falling out between him and Steve Wozniak, which I gotta say, the film Steve Jobs is really fantastic. The Aaron Sorkin one, not the Ashton Kutcher one. But if you look at it like that, it's like, okay, this is just alternate history. It's and I think if you're looking for an ABC story, it's really not that. This film jumps in time a lot. It goes backwards. And, I mean, it's mostly linear, but when I say jumps in time, is that it's not, it really is just big events. Like, like after she starts to become this kind of, like, model and stuff for magazines and whatnot, it really kind of goes right into, like, okay, she's now, like, a big star of first film. But with a lot of the crudes there, there were times where people kind of speculated that Marilyn Monroe was probably very smart, but people wanted this image of kind of like this ditzy kind of blonde and stuff. So there's a great sequence early on where she says that she's read the script, and some of the guys are kind of like chuckling, like, yeah, like thinking like this lady probably can't even read, She's talking about has she read like Dostoevsky, and so that's where it comes from, man. And I just think that I'm not going to talk about it for much longer because I want to wrap up a couple things, but the way the film, I mean, if I had any real complaints to the film, I will say that it doesn't feel 3 hours, but there are times where it does drag a little bit, because a lot of the film is very heavy on its editing and a lot of visual flair, and at a certain point, I would say more so in the third act, it does start to wear off a bit. I do wonder if this is would have been better at maybe 2.5 hours, because it's funny, because you have the assassination of Jesse James, which is almost 3 hours, and I mentioned that it's like you have the the assassination of Jesse James, and then you have the whole third act, and it like kickstarts into like a whole exciting part of the film, and you don't even feel it's 3 hours. It's incredible. And here, I think I did kind of need that. I do feel like the third act kind of stumbled a little bit for me in terms of just the downfall and eventually her death and all that, and it ends a little abruptly. These are minor complaints, though, because I look at this and I look at Andrew Dominik as such a smart and confident filmmaker that seeing his work from Chopper to Jesse James to Killing Him Softly, he is growing more and is doing different styles. I mean, this is a very dark film, but then you have a film like Chopper, which is dark, it's all based off a true story. That one more so. But then you have these really funny moments, like when Chopper beats the hell out of a guy, but then takes him to the hospital. So when that guy later is like, "You beat the hell out of me," he's like, "Yeah, but I took you to the hospital." It's great. It's hilarious. And I think, and I won't I'll talk about this briefly because I really don't want to get into it too much, but every couple months, there are films that come out that people have these really bad gut reactions to. A couple months ago, it was Licorice Pizza. In 2019, it was Joker. These films that I think at first people kind of, divisive films, not Licorice Pizza, not as divisive, but I'm talking about in that group where people are quick to just say really hyperbolic and really poorly thought out things. I mean, I looked at maybe like two little things for this film, and I was just like, I'm done. There's film criticism, and then there's hyperbole, people saying there's no merits to this film, it's worthless. I'm thinking, people, whatever. Everyone is entitled to their opinion on anything, but I do feel like when I was done watching this film, immediately I was like, wow, that was amazing. I wonder what the response is. And it's got low ratings and stuff, and people are like, oh, this is junk, this is exploitive. They say it's exploitive, but are happy to watch the next Jeffrey Dahmer cash cow that's on Netflix. I mean, come on, let's face it, man. And I don't have a problem with the Dahmer series, but let's face it, who's being really exploitive here? I mean, come on, man. And That's all it is, man. You can't take that too seriously because even when Joker came out, people were saying, "Oh, it's gonna incite violence," and "Oh, this is the worst film of the year," and "There's no merits to this film." Like, there's no merits. It's not shot well. It's not acted well. I think Joaquin Phoenix is pretty amazing in that film, and he rightfully earned the Oscar for that film. But the cinematography is not well. There's no like, you know, I just feel like people kind of get in this vacuum where they just repeat each other. Everyone's saying, "Oh, Joker is just Taxi Driver. Oh, it's just King of Comedy," but then it's like, yeah, well, Todd Phillips admitted that. He admitted those were big inspirations for the film, and but people acting like it's some sort of remake. It's like funny. I didn't see anybody talk about the comparisons to Seven with the Batman. And next, I mean, every film is taken from something else. This idea that like, anyways, that's a whole other tangent. My point is that don't like you film online film criticism of like of I'm definitely not on Twitter. I'll never be on Twitter, but like Letterboxd and stuff. I don't like. I pretty much am done looking at any other ratings on Letterboxd unless it's my acquaintances, whose opinions I actually am interested in. And if they come back and they say Blonde was terrible, I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. I want to hear what you have to say about it, not these hyperbolic. Because I remember reading even a thing when that Elvis movie came out. Some people giving like half a star. It's like getting to Elvis' personal life, saying they'll never watch it. I'm like, wait, you're not even gonna watch the film? And you're gonna get out of here, man. I wasn't even crazy about the Elvis film. I thought it was okay, but half a star. Get out of here, man. You guys don't like films. You may watch a lot of films, but you don't like films. I'm sorry, you don't. It's just ridiculous, man. So you got to step yourself away from it. It's easy to get caught up in a lot of these people who just are stuck behind a keyboard they watch a film and it sucks, but there was one thing I did want to read in regards to all that from a guy that I follow on Instagram, and I think he probably said it better than I could because I could talk about it the whole thing for hours, but ultimately it doesn't matter because whether or not you like or dislike a film, it's good that it's divisive because people should be able to judge your own opinions. But I don't know if he wants me to say his name or not, so I won't. But here's what this kind of sums up. This is the last I'm going to say about it in referring to the film. He says, "It's a crying shame that Ana de Armas likely won't get all of the lavish attention and gilded plaudits she deserves for her utterly fearless and mesmerizing performance in Blonde due to the here today, gone tomorrow fabricated controversy that surrounds the film. My suggestion is to completely ignore the artificially suppressed aggregate ratings on Letterboxd, IMDb, and Rotten Tomatoes, fire up Netflix, and form your own opinion after watching it unencumbered by other people's personal politics as humanly possible. Not an easy task in today's brainworm, always-on, constant contact world, I know. Blonde is a true life-inspired horror story that stands proud in the haunting wake of films like Mulholland Drive, Black Swan, Starry Eyes, and Portraits of Andrea Palmer. Also of special note is the otherworldly score crafted for the film by Nick Cave and Warren Ellis. Do yourself a favor, ignore the online ratings and reviews. Watch the film yourself, like it, dislike it, form your own opinion. Don't just follow into the trend, man, because it's so easy to do that now. And he said it better than I could, man. You know what I took away from it? I was extremely happy with the film. I loved it. It's one of the best films I've seen this year. Andrew Dominik is just an amazing director. I'd love to shake his hand, look him in the eye, and say, you're one of the best filmmakers working, and I hope no one tells you otherwise. Ana de Armas is fantastic in the film. It's one of the best films I've seen this year. And that is where I'm going to leave that, man. It's been a busy week, I tell you. Writing has definitely taken a back seat along with watching, and it's just going to get busier from here on out. This time of the year is always busy, but we got to remember to stay focused and stay smart, not let the daily nonsense and social nonsense get you down, man. Focus on your art and your craft, man. Don't just hang out for the sake of hanging out. Hey, you want to go somewhere and do something? Okay, what are we going to do there? I don't know. We'll look around. I can do that at home. I got Amazon.com. What are you talking about, man? Unless it's what you want to do, then hey, man, knock yourself out. No one should tell you how to live your own life. Because it's your own life, and as long as you're not hurting yourself or anybody else, who gives a damn, man? Take in some great art this weekend. Have that Friday mentality 7 days out of the week, man. There's so much to do, not enough time, so don't waste it, just doing nothing, man. Unless you want to, then Godspeed to you. But I'm going to end it right there, man. All the best, guys. Keep an eye out for, actually, it'll probably be out the time that this video comes up. Keep an eye out for my October 2022 Blu-ray releases. And hey, actually, we're coming up to the end of the month. So, end of the month, man. We got my... Jesus, coming up faster than I thought. Holy moly. Got my top 10 of 2018 coming at the end of the month. And let me tell you guys, I've seen some amazing films from 2018. And I can't wait to talk about them. So this has been the Cozy Corner of Cinema.